I recently had a founder ask me for a time tracking system for his developers. Of course, there are tons of software for that, but is it the right approach to measure every minute of your developers? In today's episode, we are going to talk about how to measure developers or even employees' efficiency, and we will see that time is not the only and not the main thing to measure, especially in software development. Hi, I'm Amaury, founder and CEO at MyCTO where founders come to learn how to build their tech startup. And with this Startup Snack series, available on both podcast and YouTube, we want to share the essential to make it easier for you to build your tech startup. And when we become an entrepreneur, we discover pretty quickly that time is our most valuable asset. Because time is not only money, but time is value and potential value, especially for tomorrow's business, right? For centuries, time tracking was obviously the first and main element to measure when someone is working for you. But that's not the case anymore, because if you ask to your employee or to a freelancer to create something that does not exist yet, then you don't really have any point of comparison. And just measuring time is not enough, and the deliverables is not enough, especially in software development. So if you only rely on these two elements, the time and deliverables, you are basically screwed. And I'm going to tell you why. To develop pretty much the same thing, developers can choose among thousands approach with infinite way of coding things. If we take the time as the main point of measure, that indicate to the developer that he is paid just to deliver what we ask for, right? Without any other criteria, and I'm talking about quality criteria. And we are not only talking about design, by the way. We are talking about what's under the water of the iceberg, right? And that might also be one of your priority. Because if we are not anticipating the hundreds of features that we want to add afterwards, if we only focus on time and the delivered features, especially for the first 10 ones, well, then after maybe 20, 30 features, your software will be like a bomb. You will not be able to touch anything on your software without adding countless bugs. And every new features or new functionalities will cost 10x of what it would have cost if your developers had other priority early on. So to come back on the main questions, do we need to set deliverables? Of course, the answer is yes. Do we need to set deadlines? Yes, of course. Do we need to time track? Yes, but not the developer's time. We need to track the time required for each task, required for the developers to develop a set feature. And we also need to push developers to sit down and think before starting to code. We need to encourage brainstorming meetings between developers, especially on the beginning of the project or for any new features, to invite them to challenge each other, to not only do things the way they were used to, but to try to figure out what's the best way to develop something new. And that's why in software development, we usually use the Agile Scrum methodology because it provides a life cycle for 2, 3, or 4 weeks. That's what we call the sprints. On the beginning of that short period, we just set goals so that developers know what they need to achieve, right? And naturally, on the beginning, there is not that much stress and pressure. The developers will also tend to be in a creative mode, thinking over, okay, I know that I need to reach that deadline and to reach that functionalities in 2, 3, or 4 weeks. What's the best way to achieve that? What's the best way to make it right and to save some time? And they might think maybe, what if someday we want to add this new feature? Or what if I consider structuring my code that way, or with a specific logic or a specific technology or database to make things more scalable? And you as a founder, you are responsible for guiding your developers, for not only asking for deliverables, but also to share what are your expectations for this upcoming version, but also your long-term expectations. Then, when the sprint is ending and when the sprint is coming, the end of the sprint is coming, there is a good stress that is rising in the team. And the developers' focus will change. They will focus now on deliverables. They will focus on coding what they were expected to, what they were committed to. But that time they are going to do it the right way, thanks to the creative time they invested early on. So now the real question for you is, do you want to dump your prototype or your MVP in 3 months? Do you want to use it for the 2 coming years? Because you need to be clear about that. And you need to share that with your developers, to ask him if he needs to go for the quick and dirty approach, which could be great and could be okay if you are okay with restarting from scratch later on, because that's the only way. If you create a very bad product, you will have to restart from scratch. And most of the time, if you have good developers, they will warn you about the shortcuts that they are taking, which also mean that if they warn you, they really measure the quality of the code, of what they can deliver. And they will tell you, if you take shortcuts, what are going to be the drawbacks. So, in conclusion, if you want to use time tracking, then go for it. But don't only track developers' time, because maybe if they are stuck with a specific problem or with a specific algorithm and they need to think over it, maybe that's the good time for them to just go and have a run, just to think and accelerate their brain, right? And they will come back and maybe they're going to solve the problem in the best way possible. And just tracking the time they're going to be stuck in front of their screen won't help at all. So try to ask them to track the time invested in each tasks, but also to motivate them to brainstorm and to challenge each other to find the best solutions. That's the best way to invest in your product. And the time they're going to invest right now, maybe 10 or 20% of their time, it's worth it. And you will save it after a few weeks or few months of development. If you enjoy learning with us and want to see more, consider subscribing. Help us spread the word by hitting the like button and by sharing with your entrepreneur friends. And if you have any question or want to suggest a topic, feel free to comment down below, or you can also check out our program on our website, mycityofriend.co.